But for one man,
Humbug.
Christmas comes but once a year.
Ah!
But this holiday season, that's once too often.
Is someone there?
He'll be given a second to get his life right. Chance.
Expect the first.
To be halted by 3 spins.
Couldn't I take them all at once
Tomorrow when the bell tolls 1.
and have it over with?
Disney Pictures present Walt and Image Movers Digital, Jim Carrey. In a new vision of the classic, like you've never seen it before. Disney Digital 3D and iMagic Tale. 3D.
What's happening?
F's Negation A Christmas Carol, 2009, Ekhaisi Kahani Hai Joseph Christmas Ki Nai, Balkayan Sanksamir Ki Kahani Hai, Eklalkai A Urbi Rimadmi, Ekrut, A Urtin Ru Ain Jo Use Us Ka Past, Present Ha Futured Kakaras Ki Pa Resigned Algi Kasak Samakarwadi Hain, is movie ki animation. Dark tone Jehra message aj bidil ko highlighted high, is video mine humba karanj movie hidden facts, interesting details honest review kia surf Ms. Cinema Film Par. A Christmas Carol, also called Disney's A Christmas Carol, is a 2009 American animated Christmas fantasy movie. It is based on the famous 1843 novel written by Charles Dickens. The film was directed, written, and co-produced by Robert Zemeckis. It features a motion capture and voice cast that includes Jim Carrey, Gary Oldman, Colin Firth, Bob Hoskins, Robin Wright Penn, Carrie Elves, and Fionnuala Flanagan. The movie was produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Image Movers Digital, and released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. This film is Disney's third adaptation of the classic story, following Mickey's Christmas Carol released in 1983 and The Muppet Christmas Carol released in 1992. The movie was animated using motion capture technology, a special technique where real actors' movements are recorded and turned into animated characters. This same method was used in Image Movers' earlier films such as The Polar Express, 2004, Monster House, 2006, and Beowulf, 2007. Like many of Robert Zemeckis' previous movies, the music for A Christmas Carol was composed by Alan Silvestri. This film was the first project produced by Image Movers Digital. It later became one of only 2 films made by the studio, along with Mars Needs Moms, 2011, before Disney shut down the studio due to weak box office performance. A Christmas Carol had its world premiere in London on November 3, 2009. Which happened on the same day as the annual Christmas lights were turned on in Oxford Street and Regent Street. The film was later released in the United States on November 6, 2009, in Disney Digital 3D, Rel 3D, and IMAX 3D formats. Worldwide, the movie earned $325.3 million at the box office, with a production budget between $175 and $200 million. The film received mixed reactions from critics. Some criticized its dark tone and screenplay, while others praised its impressive visuals, Alan Silvestri's music, and the performances of Jim Carrey and Gary Oldman. Despite the mixed reviews, the movie was nominated for Favorite Animated Movie, and Jim Carrey won Favorite Voice from an Animated Movie at the 2010 Kids' Choice Awards. On Christmas Eve in 1836, Ebenezer Scrooge's closest friend and business partner, Jacob Marley, passes away. His death leaves a deep mark on Scrooge, but instead of becoming kinder, Scrooge grows colder with time. 7 years later, Scrooge is a bitter and rude businessman living in Victorian London. He has no love for Christmas and refuses to join in any celebrations. On Christmas Eve in 1843, he turns down an invitation to Christmas dinner from his nephew Fred, rudely sends away 2 men who are asking for donations to help the poor, and only unwillingly agrees to give his loyal employee Bob Cratchit the day off on Christmas. That night, Scrooge is shocked when the ghost of Jacob Marley appears in his room, dragging heavy chains. Marley warns Scrooge that his greedy and heartless life has led him to this terrible fate. He tells Scrooge that 3 spirits will visit him and that he must listen to them, or he will suffer the same punishment after death. At 1 o'clock, Scrooge is visited by the ghost of Christmas past, who takes him on a journey through his memories. Scrooge sees his lonely childhood at boarding school, his warm relationship with his kind sister Fan, and his happy days as an apprentice working for the generous Mr. Fezziwig. He also relives his past romance with a young woman named Belle, whom he truly loved. However, Scrooge's obsession with money slowly pushed her away, and their relationship ended. Filled with regret and pain, Scrooge puts out the ghost flame and returns home, emotionally exhausted. Next, Scrooge meets the cheerful ghost of Christmas Present, who shows him how people celebrate Christmas with joy and gratitude. They visit Bob Cratchit's home, where Scrooge sees that Bob's family is happy and loving despite their small meal and poor living conditions. Scrooge feels sympathy for Bob's sick son, Tiny Tim, and is saddened when the ghost reveals that the boy may not live until the next Christmas. They then visit Fred's house, where Fred warmly encourages his guests to drink a toast to Scrooge, even though Scrooge has always treated him poorly. Before disappearing, the ghost reveals 2 frightening figures named Ignorance and Want, warning Scrooge about the dangers of neglecting compassion and care for others. Finally, the silent and frightening ghost of Christmas Yet to Come appears and shows Scrooge a dark future. He sees people talking about a man's death with indifference and even happiness. Scrooge asks to see a more loving reaction to death, and the ghost shows him the Cratchit family grieving over the loss of Tiny Tim. The ghost then takes Scrooge to a graveyard and points to a tombstone with Scrooge's own name on it, revealing that he is the man who died alone and unloved. Terrified, Scrooge begs for a second chance and promises to change his life. He suddenly wakes up in his bedroom. Realizing that it is now Christmas Day, Scrooge is filled with joy and excitement. He happily spreads kindness throughout London by secretly sending a large turkey to the Cratchit family, donating generously to the poor, and joining Fred's Christmas dinner. The next day, he increases Bob Cratchit's salary and offers his full support to the family. Scrooge becomes like a loving father to Tiny Tim, who recovers from his illness and grows healthy. From that day on, Scrooge lives his life with kindness, generosity, and compassion, truly embracing the spirit of Christmas. The 2009 adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, directed by Robert Zemeckis, presents a visually immersive retelling through motion capture animation, blending fidelity to the original novella with innovative 3D effects. The plot unfolds in Victorian London, beginning in 1836 with the death of Jacob Marley, Ebenezer Scrooge's business partner. 7 years later, on Christmas Eve 1843, Scrooge is depicted as a curmudgeonly moneylender who scorns the holiday's cheer. He rebuffs his nephew Fred's invitation to dinner, dismisses 2 charity collectors with disdain, and reluctantly allows his overworked clerk, Bob Cratchit, the day off with pay. As Scrooge retires to his cold, dimly lit home, the supernatural elements commence with the apparition of Marley's ghost, shackled in chains symbolizing his earthly greed. Marley warns Scrooge of impending visits from 3 spirits, urging him to reform or face eternal damnation. The first spirit, the ghost of Christmas past, manifests as a flickering, candle-like figure with an androgynous appearance and an Irish accent. It transports Scrooge through memories of his youth, his lonely days at boarding school, where he was left during holidays, the tender bond with his sister Fan, who later dies in childbirth, his apprenticeship under the jovial Mr. Fezziwig, whose festive parties highlight lost joy, and his engagement to Belle, which dissolves due to Scrooge's growing obsession with wealth over love. Overwhelmed, Scrooge extinguishes the spirit's light, returning to his bedchamber in distress. The Ghost of Christmas Present follows, a towering, jolly giant with a Yorkshire accent, clad in a green robe and crowned with holly. He reveals the warmth of the Cratchit household, where Bob's family, including the ailing Tiny Tim, makes the most of their meager Christmas meal. The spirit then shows Fred's lively gathering, where Scrooge is mocked yet toasted in absentia. Before vanishing, the ghost unveils two emaciated children, ignorance and want, as metaphors for societal ills. The sequence emphasizes the present's fleeting nature, with the spirit aging rapidly as midnight approaches. The most ominous visitor, the ghost of Christmas yet to come, appears as a silent, hooded shadow, guiding Scrooge to a grim future. Here, an unnamed man's death evokes indifference and even relief among acquaintances' belongings are pawned by opportunistic servants. Scrooge witnesses the Cratchits grieving Tiny Tim's passing and, finally, his own neglected grave, inscribed with his name, foretelling a lonely death on Christmas Day. This vision culminates in Scrooge's desperate plea for redemption. Awakening transformed on Christmas morning, Scrooge embraces generosity. He anonymously sends a prize turkey to the Cratchits, donates handsomely to the charity he once spurned, and joins Fred's celebration. He raises Bob's salary, becomes a benefactor to the family, and assumes a paternal role toward Tiny Tim, who survives. The narrative closes with Scrooge embodying the holiday's spirit, his life redefined by kindness and community. Ebenezer Scrooge, portrayed by Jim Carrey, serves as the film's emotional core, evolving from a hunched, bitter miser to a redeemed philanthropist. Carrey's performance captures Scrooge's physicality, his stooped posture, sharp features, and gravelly voice while infusing subtle vulnerability, particularly in flashbacks to his neglected childhood. The character's arc underscores themes of isolation bred from materialism, with Scrooge's initial declarations like "Bah, humbug," evolving into genuine warmth. Carrey's multi-role involvement extends to the spirits, allowing thematic continuity. For instance, the Ghost of Christmas Past's ethereal, flame-headed form mirrors Scrooge's suppressed passions, while the present's booming laughter contrasts his stinginess. Bob Cratchit, voiced and motion captured by Gary Oldman, represents the oppressed working class, his diminutive stature and humble demeanor emphasizing resilience amid poverty. Oldman's portrayal adds depth through nuanced expressions of quiet dignity, especially in scenes with his family, where his love for Tiny Tim shines. Jacob Marley, also Oldman, appears as a grotesque, chain-bound specter, his warnings delivered with rattling intensity, symbolizing the burdens of unchecked avarice. Tiny Tim, with motion capture from Oldman and voice by Ryan Ochoa among others, embodies innocence and fragility, his iconic line "God bless us, everyone," serving as a poignant call for empathy. Fred, played by Colin Firth, is Scrooge's optimistic nephew, whose persistent invitations highlight familial bonds. Firth's warm, aristocratic delivery contrasts Scrooge's coldness, making Fred a beacon of holiday joy. Belle, portrayed by Robin Wright, represents lost love, her scenes with young Scrooge revealing the personal cost of greed. Mr. Fezziwig, voiced by Bob Hoskins, is a jovial mentor whose warehouse ball sequence bursts with energy, showcasing communal celebration. Supporting roles, like Mrs. Cratchit, Leslie Manville, and the charity collectors, add layers to the social fabric, illustrating Dickens' critique of Victorian inequality. The casting choices reflect a blend of star power and versatility, with Carrey's comedic background tempered for dramatic weight. In interviews, Carrey described Scrooge as embodying lies we believe about ourselves, drawing from personal reflections on self-worth. Oldman's triple role demanded vocal distinction: Marley's ghostly wail, Cratchit's soft-spoken humility, and Tiny Tim's childlike purity, showcasing his range. Firth's involvement brought British authenticity, while Wright's Belle added emotional gravitas. Zemeckis praised the actor's commitment to motion capture suits, dotted with sensors, allowing full-body performances without traditional sets. Behind-the-scenes footage reveals Carrey improvising physical quirks, like Scrooge's limp, and Oldman rehearsing Cratchit's family interactions in empty soundstages, later animated into detailed Victorian homes. Production began with Zemeckis' vision to adapt Dickens faithfully yet cinematically, inspired by the novella's time travel elements that influenced his Back to the Future series. Developed under Walt Disney Pictures and Image Movers Digital, the film marked the latter's debut project. Zemeckis wrote the screenplay, aiming to capture unrealized aspects of the book, such as supernatural flights and chases, enhanced by 3D. Filming occurred via performance capture at studios in California, where actors performed on minimalist sets called The Volume, equipped with hundreds of cameras to record movements in 360 degrees. This technology, refined from the Polar Express and Beowulf, allowed seamless integration of human performances with digital environments. The animation process involved layering actor data with computer-generated imagery, creating hyper-realistic characters whose appearances loosely resembled the performers, Scrooge as a weathered Carrey, Cratchit as a hobbit like Oldman. Animators at Image Movers added details like flickering candlelight on the past ghost or the yet-to-come's ominous shadows. Challenges included rendering realistic skin textures and hair, avoiding the uncanny valley effect plaguing earlier mocap films. Zemeckis noted in press conferences that animation enabled credible supernatural scenes, where live action might falter, such as Scrooge's miniaturization or aerial pursuits through London. Budgeted at $175–200 million, the production emphasized spectacle, with sequences like the carriage chase in the future segment designed for IMAX 3D immersion. A promotional train tour in May 2009, partnering with Amtrak, traveled from Los Angeles to New York, stopping in 40 cities to showcase props and previews, building holiday anticipation. Despite high costs, the film's visual ambition aimed to redefine animated storytelling, though it contributed to Image Movers Digital's closure after underperformance. Alan Silvestri's score weaves traditional carols with original compositions, enhancing the film's emotional and atmospheric depth. The soundtrack, released November 3, 2009, by Walt Disney Records, runs 45 minutes and features the Hollywood Studio Symphony, London Voices, and orchestrations by William Ross and others. Opening with A Christmas Carol main title, a sweeping orchestral piece blending festive motifs with foreboding undertones, it sets a tone of wonder and dread. Tracks like Marley's Ghost Visits Scrooge build tension with rattling chains and ethereal choirs, while Flight to Fezziwigs incorporates lively waltzes evoking Victorian balls. Silvestri draws from hymns such as God Rest Ye Merry, Gentlemen and Deck the Halls, reimagined for dramatic effect, joyful in present scenes, somber in future visions. The end credits song, God Bless Us Everyone, performed by Andrea Bocelli and co-written by Silvestri and Glenn Ballard, provides uplifting closure with lyrics emphasizing redemption. In Japan, Juju's Present served as the theme. The music's integration amplifies key moments, like the clock tower chime signaling spirit transitions or the carriage chase's pulsating rhythms, making the score integral to the film's pacing and immersion. Thematically, the film explores redemption through self-reflection, critiquing capitalism's dehumanizing effects. Scrooge's journey mirrors Dickens' social commentary on poverty, with ignorance and want personifying neglected education and need. The 3D format heightens symbolism as spirits' appearances evoke horror elements, underscoring fear as a catalyst for change. Carrey's portrayal adds psychological layers, portraying Scrooge's miserliness as a defense against abandonment trauma. Zemeckis' adaptation amplifies the novella's darkness, with scary ghosts and death imagery, diverging from lighter versions like The Muppet Christmas Carol. This boldness, while faithful, drew mixed responses for its intensity, particularly for family audiences. Released November 6, 2009, in Disney Digital 3D, Rel 3D, and IMAX 3D, the film premiered in London on November 3, coinciding with Christmas lights activations. It opened in 3,683 theaters, grossing $30.1 million domestically in its first weekend, topping the box office. Worldwide earnings reached $325.3 million, with $137.9 million in the US/Canada and $187.4 million internationally, including strong UK performances where it reclaimed the top spot weeks later. Despite success, High production costs led to estimated losses of $100 million for Disney, prompting executive changes and the shutdown of Image Movers Digital after one more film. Critical reception was mixed, with a 52% tomatometer on Rotten Tomatoes based on 203 reviews, averaging 5.9. The consensus notes dazzling effects distracting from strong performances by Carrey and Oldman. Metacritic scored 55/100 from 32 critics, indicating average reviews. Roger Ebert awarded 4 stars, calling it an exhilarating visual experience and praising its fidelity and 3D innovation. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly gave an A, lauding the marvelous Yuletide toy quality and Carrey's nuanced Scrooge. Joe Newmeyer from New York Daily News rated 3.5, appreciating craftsmanship but critiquing artlessness. Negative views included Joe Morgenstern's Wall Street Journal piece decrying the joyless tone, and Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian finding it high-tech impressive but unexciting, yearning for real actors. Time at London criticized style over substance, while Deep Focus Review lamented the flattening of Dickens' poignancy. UK Film Review highlighted its nightmarish and bold approach, lacking fluffy trimmings but embracing creepiness. Reddit discussions praised its edge, noting the story's inherent brutality often softened in adaptations. The M0 blog deemed it enjoyable yet not transcendent, faulting emotional disconnect despite technical prowess. Audience scores fared better, with 55% on Rotten Tomatoes and a B+ cinema score, many appreciating the dark tone and visuals as a fresh take. Awards recognition was modest, nominated for Best Animated Feature at the 36th Saturn Awards, and Jim Carrey won Favorite Voice from an Animated Movie at the 2010 Kids' Choice Awards, with the film nominated for Favorite Animated Movie. Home media release on November 16, 2010, included DVD, Blu-ray combos, and Blu-ray 3D editions, featuring extras like deleted scenes, Capturing a Christmas Carol, and an interactive digital advent calendar. The 3D version offered a game, Mr. Scrooge's Wild Ride, enhancing replay value. Trivia abounds, such as a portrait of Dickens in the Cratchit home, nodding to the author. Goofs include Marley's prediction of nightly visits condensed into one, true to the book where spirits cleverly comply. Quotes like Scrooge's "What do you want with me?" to Marley encapsulate tension. The film's legacy endures as a holiday staple, its motion capture pioneering influencing later animations, though debates persist on its balance of spectacle and heart. Comparisons to Zemeckis' prior works highlight evolution in technology, while its darker fidelity distinguishes it from Disney's lighter fare. Expanding on the animation, the mocap suits allowed actors like Carrey to perform acrobatic feats, later digitized such as Scrooge's flight with the past ghost, involving wire work simulated in post-production. Behind-the-scenes videos show Carrey and Oldman in dotted leotards, acting out Cratchit family dinners on bare stages, with animators adding turkey and hearth later. Zemeckis' direction emphasized physical comedy, like Scrooge's exaggerated scowl, blending Carrey's elasticity with dramatic restraint. In character development, Fred's role amplifies forgiveness, his toast to Scrooge foreshadowing reconciliation. Belle's breakup scene, with Wright's poignant delivery, humanizes Scrooge's fall. Her line "Another idol has replaced me" echoing materialistic themes. The spirit's design surpassed flickering instability symbolizing memory's fragility, presence abundance contrasting scarcity, yet to come silence evoking inevitable judgment in rich allegorical depth. Production challenges included budget overruns from intricate CGI, with London recreated from historical references for authenticity: cobblestone streets, foggy alleys, bustling markets. The 3D format required dual camera setups in animation, enhancing depth in flights over rooftops or dives into graves. Silvestri's collaboration involved live orchestra sessions, incorporating Victorian instruments for period flavor. Reception analyses often note the film's timeliness amid 2008's financial crisis, Scrooge's greed paralleling economic woes. Reviews like the New York Times highlighted creepy horror movie effects, advising PG caution for scares. Into Film praised its family appeal despite intensity, while fan forums celebrate it as underrated, with Carrey's versatility lauded. Box office breakdowns show strong holiday legs, grossing over $15 million in week 2, buoyed by 3D premiums. Internationally, it resonated in Europe, tapping Dickens' heritage. Home sales added $69 million, bolstering totals. Ultimately, the film's blend of innovation and tradition cements its place in holiday cinema, its visuals and performances inviting repeated viewings. A Christmas Carol, 2009 film, production to reception, production development and pre-production. The journey toward creating Disney's 2009 adaptation of A Christmas Carol began with director Robert Zemeckis' growing fascination with performance capture technology. Following the commercial and critical success of The Polar Express in 2004, Zemeckis found himself deeply enamored with what he termed digital theater or digital cinema. This newfound passion led him on a quest to identify stories that could be brought to life in innovative ways through this emerging medium. After completing work on Beowulf in 2007, another motion capture project that pushed the boundaries of the technology, Zemeckis experienced a creative epiphany regarding Charles Dickens's timeless tale. Upon revisiting Dickens's 1843 novella, Zemeckis had a revelation that would shape the entire project. He realized that the story had never been realized in the way Dickens originally imagined it when putting pen to paper. The director became convinced that Dickens had essentially written the story to be a movie, citing its inherently visual and cinematic qualities. This realization was particularly compelling given that Dickens had written the work nearly 6 decades before the invention of cinema itself. Zemeckis also noted his long-standing appreciation for A Christmas Carol as one of his favorite stories dealing with time travel, a theme that had featured prominently in his earlier work, particularly the Back to the Future trilogy. In July 2007, Walt Disney Pictures officially announced the ambitious project. The announcement revealed that Zemeckis would take on triple duties as director, screenwriter, and co-producer, adapting Dickens's beloved novella for the screen. This marked a significant milestone for both Disney and Zemeckis, as the film would be produced through a partnership between Walt Disney Pictures and Image Movers Digital, a production company that Zemeckis had founded in 2007 specifically to develop three-dimensional performance capture projects. The establishment of Image Movers Digital represented Zemeckis' commitment to exploring and advancing this particular form of filmmaking, and A Christmas Carol would serve as the studio's inaugural feature film. The budget for the production ranged between $175 million and $200 million. Reflecting the enormous costs associated with cutting-edge animation techniques and the technological infrastructure required. This substantial financial commitment underscored Disney's confidence in both the project and the emerging technology. The high budget was necessitated by several factors: the need for state-of-the-art motion capture equipment, the extensive post-production work required to transform raw performance data into fully realized animated characters and environments, and the decision to create the film in stereoscopic 3D for theatrical release. A pivotal creative decision made during the development phase was Zemeckis' determination to use motion capture technology to enable dynamic, actor-driven performances while maintaining creative flexibility in post-production. This approach would allow the filmmakers to blend realism with fantastical elements seamlessly. The technology offered unprecedented freedom in camera placement and movement, as there were no physical constraints of traditional filmmaking. Zemeckis could design shots that would be impossible or prohibitively expensive to achieve in live action, such as sweeping aerial views of Victorian London or intimate close-ups during supernatural sequences. The casting process for A Christmas Carol was equally strategic and ambitious. Jim Carrey, known for his physical comedy and remarkable ability to transform himself into diverse characters, was the director's first choice for the role of Ebenezer Scrooge. However, Zemeckis' vision extended far beyond simply having Carrey voice the miserly protagonist. In a casting decision that would prove both innovative and challenging, Carrey was assigned to play Scrooge at multiple ages as a young boy, teenager, young man, middle-aged man, and elderly Misra, as well as all three Christmas spirits: the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas yet to come. This multi-role approach would leverage Carrey's versatility while also serving as a powerful demonstration of the motion capture technology's capabilities. Carrey embraced the challenge enthusiastically, describing the film as a classical version of Dickens's tale. He acknowledged the numerous vocal and physical demands of the production, noting that he needed to master proper English and Irish accents to ensure authenticity. The actor expressed particular concern about the film succeeding with British audiences, stating his desire for viewers in the United Kingdom to acknowledge the production as authentic and true to the source material. Carrey emphasized that the production team remained faithful to Dickens's original book, calling the resulting film beautiful and incredible. The supporting cast assembled for the project included some of British cinema's most respected talents. Gary Oldman was cast in multiple roles, including Bob Cratchit, Scrooge's long-suffering clerk, and Jacob Marley, Scrooge's deceased business partner whose ghostly visit sets the story in motion. Oldman also provided the motion capture performance for Tiny Tim, though the character's voice would be provided by child actor Ryan Ochoa. Colin Firth took on the role of Fred, Scrooge's optimistic nephew who refuses to give up on his curmudgeonly uncle. Bob Hoskins portrayed Mr. Fezziwig, the jovial employer who once showed Scrooge the meaning of generosity and kindness. Robin Wright Penn played dual roles as Fan, Scrooge's beloved younger sister, and Belle, the woman Scrooge once loved but lost due to his growing obsession with wealth. Carrey Elves served a unique function in the production, playing several smaller roles while also acting as a stand-in for Scrooge and the ghosts of Christmas past and present during scenes where two characters performed by Carrey needed to interact. This practical solution addressed one of the inherent challenges of having a single actor play multiple roles in scenes requiring their interaction. During filming, when Carrey performed as one character, Elves would stand in as the other, delivering lines and providing a physical presence for Carrey to react to. This process would then be reversed, with Carrey performing the second character while Elves stood in for the first. Zemeckis' commitment to authenticity extended to the screenplay itself. The director made a conscious decision to incorporate substantial amounts of Dickens's original dialogue directly into the script. This fidelity to the source material was unusual for a Hollywood adaptation, particularly one aimed at family audiences. However, Zemeckis believed that Dickens's language was essential to capturing the spirit and power of the original work. He recognized that while some modernization might be necessary for pacing and cinematic flow, the core of Dickens's prose should remain intact. This decision would later become a point of both praise and criticism among reviewers. The pre-production phase also involved extensive research and planning for the visual design of the film. The production team studied Victorian London extensively, examining historical photographs, architectural drawings, and period artwork to ensure accuracy in their digital recreation of the era. Costume designs were developed based on authentic Victorian fashion, though these would ultimately be translated into digital garments during the animation process. The design of the three Christmas spirits received particular attention, with artists working to create interpretations that honored Dickens's descriptions while taking advantage of the fantastical possibilities offered by the medium. For the Ghost of Christmas Past, the team created a design featuring a head resembling a candle flame, with a childlike face that flickered and whispered, closely following Dickens's original description. The Ghost of Christmas Present was envisioned as a jovial giant dressed in green robes, again remaining faithful to the source material. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come was rendered as the most frightening of the three, a silent, hooded figure accompanied by red-eyed black stallions, designed to be genuinely terrifying rather than softened for younger viewers. The filming process for A Christmas Carol represented a significant departure from traditional movie production, taking place entirely within the controlled environment of Image Movers Digital Studios in Los Angeles. Principal photography commenced on February 25, 2008, but the term photography requires some qualification, as no traditional cameras, sets, or costumes were employed during this phase. Instead, the production utilized what the team called the volumia, a designated space filled with infrared cameras that tracked the movements of actors wearing specialized motion capture suits. These suits were equipped with reflective markers strategically placed across the actors' bodies, including their faces. The infrared cameras, positioned at various angles throughout the volume, detected these markers and recorded their positions and movements in three-dimensional space. This data was captured in real time and stored directly onto hard drives, eliminating the need for film stock or traditional video recording. The setup allowed for complete freedom of movement and eliminated many of the technical constraints of conventional filmmaking. The filming process itself bore more resemblance to theatrical performance than traditional cinema. Zemeckis prepared his actors with intensive table reads where he would initially act out all the roles himself, demonstrating his vision for each character and scene. This preparatory work helped the actors understand the emotional beats and physical demands of their performances before stepping into the volume. Once in the capture space, actors performed entire scenes from beginning to end, much as they would in a stage production. This approach allowed for organic performances and natural interactions between characters, with the continuous recording capturing every nuance of their work. One of the most challenging aspects of the filming process was the need for actors to visualize and interact with entirely imaginary environments and elements. The volume was essentially an empty sound stage, devoid of sets, props, or any physical representation of the Victorian world the characters would inhabit. Actors had to imagine themselves in Scrooge's counting house, walking the foggy streets of London, or soaring through the air with supernatural spirits. This demanded extraordinary concentration and imagination from the performers, who had to maintain belief in their virtual surroundings while surrounded by the sterile technical reality of the capture facility. The absence of physical costumes and makeup also required adjustment. Actors wore the functional but unglamorous motion capture suits throughout filming, with no period clothing or aging makeup to help them inhabit their characters. This meant that the entirety of each performance had to come from within, from the actor's voice, movement, and emotional commitment. For veteran performers like Gary Oldman and Bob Hoskins, who had decades of experience with traditional filmmaking methods, this represented both a challenge and an opportunity to explore new performance techniques. Jim Carrey's work on the film was particularly demanding given his multiple roles. The actor would often shoot scenes with himself, first performing one character while Carrey or another stand and read the lines of the second Carrey character, then switching roles to capture the opposite perspective. This process required meticulous planning and coordination to ensure that the eye lines and interactions would feel natural once both performances were combined in post-production. Carrey's background in physical comedy proved invaluable, as he could create distinct physicality for each of his characters. The hunched, miserly movements of Old Scrooge, the ethereal floating quality of the Ghost of Christmas Past, the expansive gestures of the jolly Ghost of Christmas Present, and the silent menace of the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. The production utilized what Zemeckis called a free-form setup, described by producer Steve Starkey as being more like acting in theater. This approach facilitated dynamic blocking and allowed actors to move naturally through scenes without the constraints of camera positions, lighting considerations, or physical set boundaries that govern traditional filmmaking. Directors could watch the performances in real time on monitors, seeing rough digital representations of the characters and environments even as the actors worked in the empty volume. This immediate feedback allowed Zemeckis to make adjustments and provide direction based on how scenes would ultimately appear rather than relying solely on imagination. However, this freedom came with significant technical challenges. The motion capture data, while comprehensive, required extensive processing and refinement. Small glitches or markers becoming obscured could result in lost data or corrupted performances. The technical team had to remain vigilant throughout filming to ensure that the capture was clean and complete. Additionally, the heightened imagination required from actors meant that performances sometimes needed to be reshot once preliminary animations revealed issues with eye lines, physical interactions, or spatial relationships that weren't apparent during the initial capture. The filming process also captured facial performances with unprecedented detail. Small sensors placed on the actors' faces tracked every minute movement of their facial muscles, from subtle eye movements to the tiniest shift in expression. This level of detail was essential for conveying the emotional depth and nuance that the story required. The technology could capture Scrooge's transformation from bitter miser to joyful celebrant through the actor's facial performance alone, without relying on traditional makeup or prosthetics. Despite the technical nature of the production, Zemeckis worked to maintain a traditional filmmaking atmosphere on set. He provided comprehensive direction, discussing character motivations, scene objectives, and emotional arcs just as he would on a conventional film set. The crew maintained professional protocols, with rehearsals, multiple takes, and careful attention to performance quality. This approach helped actors feel connected to the filmmaking process rather than reduced to mere data points in a technological experiment. The production's cinematographer, Robert Presley, worked closely with Zemeckis to plan virtual camera movements and compositions even during the filming phase. While physical cameras weren't present in the volume, the team conceptualized how scenes would eventually be framed and shot in the virtual environment. This forward planning was essential for ensuring that the performances would work within the intended visual style of the finished film. Stunt coordinators were also involved in the production, working with actors on sequences that required falls, fights, or other physically demanding actions. While the digital nature of the production meant that dangerous stunts could be made safer or even replaced entirely with animation, capturing authentic physical performances remained important for maintaining believability. Jim Carrey worked with stunt coordinator Bradley James Allen on several sequences, including the famous chase scene where Scrooge shrinks and pursues the ghost of Christmas past. The filming phase wrapped after several months of intensive work, with the production team having captured thousands of hours of performance data. This raw material would form the foundation for the extensive post-production process to follow. The performances were complete. Now came the monumental task of building the digital world around them and transforming motion capture data into a fully realized motion picture. Post-production. Following the completion of principal photography, A Christmas Carol entered an extensive post-production phase that would ultimately consume far more time and resources than the filming itself. The post-production process transformed the raw motion capture data into the visually stunning animated film that would appear in theaters. This phase involved thousands of artists, animators, and technical specialists working to layer every element of the film onto the captured performances. The first major task in post-production involved processing the raw motion capture data. Technical directors at Image Movers Digital reviewed every frame of captured footage, cleaning up errors, filling in gaps where markers had been obscured, and ensuring that the data accurately represented the actors' performances. This work required both technical expertise and artistic judgment, as technicians had to distinguish between intentional performance choices and technical glitches while maintaining the integrity of the actor's work. Once the motion capture data was cleaned and processed, the animation team began the complex work of creating the digital characters. This process involved building detailed three-dimensional models of each character, from Scrooge himself to the most minor background figures. Character modelers created digital sculptures with extraordinary attention to detail, including individual pores, wrinkles, scars, and other facial features. The goal was to create characters that appeared remarkably lifelike while still maintaining an artistic stylization appropriate for the story's fantastical elements. The character of Scrooge received particular attention during the modeling phase. Artists created multiple versions of the character representing different ages, from the young boy Scrooge to the elderly miser. Each version needed to feel like the same person at different life stages while also reflecting the emotional and psychological changes the character undergoes. Older Scrooge was designed to appear weathered and harsh, with sharp features and a perpetual scowl, while younger versions showed more openness and vulnerability in their features. Facial animation represented one of the most challenging aspects of post-production. Despite the detailed facial capture data, considerable work remained to translate subtle human expressions into digital characters. Animation supervisors and facial animators worked frame by frame to ensure that every emotion registered clearly. They paid special attention to the eyes, widely considered the most difficult element to animate convincingly. Small adjustments to eye direction, pupil dilation, and the subtle muscles around the eyes could make the difference between a character that felt alive and one that fell into the uncanny valley, appearing almost but not quite human in a way that feels unsettling to viewers. For the three Christmas spirits, the animation challenges were even more complex. The Ghost of Christmas Past was designed with a head like a candle flame, requiring the creation of a unique rig that could maintain the character's ethereal, flickering quality while still conveying clear emotions and intentions. Animators developed specialized tools to control how the flame moved and reacted, ensuring it appeared otherworldly yet purposeful. The character spoke with an Irish accent, and animators had to match the flames' movements to Carrey's vocal performance in a way that felt natural despite the abstract visual design. The Ghost of Christmas Present represented a different challenge. This character was designed as a massive figure, towering over other characters, dressed in elaborate green robes lined with ermine fur. The character's jolly nature required broad, expansive gestures and expressions, which animators amplified beyond the original captured performance to convey the spirit's larger-than-life presence. Additionally, the character ages rapidly during his time with Scrooge, dying before the protagonist's eyes. This transformation required sophisticated aging effects and the ability to transition smoothly between the character's joyful and dying states. The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, rendered as a dark, hooded figure, was perhaps the simplest in design but most effective in execution. This silent phantom was designed to be genuinely frightening, especially when accompanied by its red-eyed spectral horses. Animators enhanced the captured performance with additional movements that emphasized the character's supernatural nature, floating slightly above the ground, movements that seemed to defy physics, and an otherworldly stillness that contrasted with the natural movements of human characters. Environmental creation represented another massive undertaking during post-production. Digital artists constructed an entire virtual Victorian London, including detailed recreations of period architecture, cobblestone streets, gas lamps, and fog-shrouded alleyways. The team studied historical references extensively to ensure accuracy while also taking creative liberties to enhance the story's dramatic and fantastical elements. Scrooge's counting house, the Cratchit family home, Fezziwig's warehouse, and countless other locations were built as complete three-dimensional digital spaces that cameras could move through freely. The level of environmental detail was extraordinary. Artists created textures for every surface, from the grain of wooden floorboards to the patina on brass doorknobs. Snow and ice effects were developed for the winter scenes, with individual snowflakes animated to create realistic accumulation and movement. Fog and mist effects added atmospheric depth to the London streets. Lighting artists worked to create the dim, gaslit ambience of Victorian nights, contrasted with the warmth of interior spaces lit by firelight and candles. One of the production's most celebrated visual sequences was the opening shot, a lengthy one-take virtual camera move that swoops through the streets of Victorian London, rising above the city and eventually focusing in on Scrooge's counting house. This shot showcased the freedom that digital filmmaking provided, as it would have been nearly impossible to execute in traditional live-action. Lighting technical directors worked on this sequence for weeks, ensuring that the lighting changed naturally as the virtual camera moved from shadowed streets into brighter areas and back again. Crowd simulation represented another significant technical challenge. Many scenes in the film featured large groups of people moving through London's streets, shopping in marketplaces, or celebrating Christmas. Rather than animating each background character individually, the technical team developed simulation systems that could generate believable crowd behavior while maintaining computational efficiency. These systems allowed artists to populate scenes with hundreds of characters, each with unique appearances and behaviors, without requiring individual animation for every person. Costume creation in post-production involved digital tailors who designed and fitted virtual clothing to each character. These digital garments needed to move and behave realistically, responding to the character's movements, gravity, and environmental factors like wind. Cloth simulation technology ensured that Scrooge's nightgown billowed appropriately as he flew through the air with the spirits, that the Ghost of Christmas Present's robes flowed with his movements, and that countless other costume elements behaved naturally. Hair and fur simulation added another layer of complexity, particularly for characters with elaborate hairstyles or fur-trimmed clothing. The film's rendering process of converting all the digital elements into finished frame as it required enormous computational resources. Each frame of the film involved billions of calculations to determine how light interacted with surfaces, how transparent and translucent materials like the Ghost of Christmas Past appeared, how fog and atmospheric effects layered over the scene, and countless other visual elements. The rendering farm at Image Movers Digital ran continuously throughout post-production, with thousands of processors working in parallel to generate the film's images. Stereoscopic 3D added yet another dimension of complexity to the production. Every shot needed to be rendered twice, once for each eye, with carefully calculated differences to create the illusion of depth when viewed through 3D glasses. Stereographers worked throughout post-production to ensure that the 3D effects enhanced the story without becoming gimmicky or causing viewer discomfort. They calculated appropriate depth for each scene, making intimate conversations relatively flat while allowing fantastical flight sequences to showcase dramatic depth. Some sequences were specifically designed to take advantage of 3D, with objects moving toward or away from the camera in ways that would have impact when viewed in the three-dimensional format. Visual effects supervisor George Murphy oversaw the enormous team of artists and technical specialists, ensuring that all elements worked together cohesively. His team created supernatural effects for the spirits, atmospheric effects for the London environment, and numerous magical moments throughout the film. The sequence where ignorance and want are revealed as emaciated children who then morph into their potential future selves as a violent robber and drunken prostitute was particularly challenging, requiring sophisticated morphing effects and careful handling of sensitive subject matter. Challenges inevitably arose during post-production. The technology, while advanced, was still evolving, and the team encountered numerous obstacles that required creative problem solving. Some captured performances didn't translate well to the digital characters, requiring either reanimation or in some cases reshoots. The integration of captured performances with digital environments sometimes revealed spatial issues that hadn't been apparent during filming, and the sheer computational demands of the project sometimes overwhelmed even the substantial rendering resources available to the production. The post-production process maintained a strict adherence to Zemeckis' vision of remaining faithful to Dickens while using the technology to realize aspects of the story that had never been fully explored on screen. The director reviewed countless iterations of scenes, providing notes on performances, animation, lighting, and effects. His attention to detail and commitment to quality meant that scenes were sometimes reworked multiple times before being approved for final rendering. As post-production continued, the pressure to meet the film's release date intensified. Image Movers Digital's entire staff worked extended hours to complete the enormous volume of work required. The final months saw artists working around the clock to finish effects shots, complete animation, and render the film in time for the theatrical release. Despite the challenges, the team succeeded in delivering the finished film, a testament to the dedication and expertise of everyone involved in the production. Music. The musical component of A Christmas Carol played a crucial role in establishing the film's emotional tone and period atmosphere. For this task, Robert Zemeckis turned to Alan Silvestri, his longtime collaborator and one of Hollywood's most respected film composers. The partnership between Zemeckis and Silvestri dated back to 1984's Romancing the Stone, and over the decades, they had worked together on some of cinema's most iconic films, including the Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Forrest Gump, Castaway, and The Polar Express. Their creative relationship was built on mutual trust and a deep understanding of each other's artistic sensibilities, making Silvestri the natural choice for scoring this ambitious adaptation. Silvestri approached the project with the goal of creating music that would honor both Dickens's original work and the Christmas tradition while also supporting Zemeckis' darker, more faithful interpretation of the tale. The composer recognized that A Christmas Carol is fundamentally a ghost story with redemptive elements rather than simply a heartwarming holiday tale, and his score needed to reflect this duality. The resulting soundtrack balanced moments of genuine terror and darkness with the warmth and joy associated with the Christmas season. The score was composed, orchestrated, and conducted by Silvestri himself, demonstrating his comprehensive involvement in the musical creation. Additional orchestration was provided by William Ross, Conrad Pope, and John Ashton Thomas, each bringing their expertise to different aspects of the musical landscape. This collaborative approach allowed for the creation of a rich, layered soundscape that could support the film's varied emotional and narrative requirements. For the performance of the score, Silvestri assembled the Hollywood Studio Symphony, a collective of Los Angeles' finest studio musicians. The recording sessions took place in 2009 at the legendary Newman Scoring Stage in Los Angeles, California, a venue renowned for its exceptional acoustics and history of hosting countless iconic film scores. The choice of venue reflected the production's commitment to achieving the highest possible audio quality and taking advantage of the recording space's ability to capture the full dynamic range of orchestral performance. The London Voices, a professional vocal ensemble, was brought in to add choral elements to several cues, enhancing the score's emotional impact during key moments. The human voice adds a particular warmth and spiritual quality to film music, and the chorus's contributions helped ground the more fantastical elements of the score in human emotion. Their performance on tracks like None of Us Will Ever Forget, which accompanies the Cratchit family mourning Tiny Tim's death, added layers of pathos that instrumental music alone could not achieve. One of Silvestri's key creative decisions was to weave traditional Christmas carols throughout the score, creating what some critics would describe as Alan Silvestri's Fantasia on famous Christmas carols. The composer incorporated familiar melodies including God Rest You Merry, Gentlemen, Deck the Halls, O Come, All Ye Faithful, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, Joy to the World, and Good King Wenceslas. However, rather than simply quoting these melodies directly, Silvestri deconstructed and reimagined them, incorporating their themes into his original compositions. This approach created a sense of familiarity for audiences while allowing the music to serve the specific dramatic needs of each scene. The opening track, A Christmas Carol main title, immediately establishes the film's tone with sweeping orchestral passages that accompany the spectacular virtual camera movement through Victorian London. Silvestri's music for this sequence balances the grandeur of the visual presentation with an underlying darkness that hints at the story to come. The composition builds excitement while maintaining an edge of foreboding, perfectly matching Zemeckis' vision of a faithful but thrilling adaptation. Marley's Ghost Visits Scrooge represents one of the score's most challenging and effective cues. Running over 6 minutes, this piece accompanies one of the film's most frightening sequences as the deceased Jacob Marley appears to warn his former partner. Silvestri employs dissonant strings, ominous brass, and unsettling percussion to create a soundscape of supernatural terror. The music enhances Marley's disturbing appearance and serves to heighten the fear and revelation Scrooge experiences during this pivotal encounter. For the Ghost of Christmas Past sequences, Silvestri created music that is both mystical and melancholic. The Ghost of Christmas Past features ethereal, shimmering orchestration that suggests the spirit's otherworldly nature while also conveying the bittersweet quality of revisiting one's past. As Scrooge witnesses moments from his childhood and young adulthood, the music shifts to reflect the emotional content of each scene, yet tender for moments with his sister Fan, joyful for the Christmas party at Fezziwig's warehouse, and heartbreaking for the scene where Belle ends their engagement. Flight to Fezziwig's and First Waltz showcase Silvestri's ability to create music of pure joy and celebration. These cues accompany the party sequence at Fezziwig's warehouse, where Scrooge remembers a time when he understood the value of human connection and generosity. The waltz is elegant and spirited, evoking the warmth and community of the Victorian celebration. Silvestri's orchestration here is lighter and more delicate, with prominent use of woodwinds and strings to create a sense of intimacy and happiness. The music for The Ghost of Christmas Present takes on a grander, more expansive quality appropriate for this larger-than-life character. Touch My Robe features bold brass fanfares and sweeping string passages that convey the spirit's jovial nature and the grandeur of the Christmas celebration happening throughout London. However, the cue also contains darker undertones that emerge as the spirit shows Scrooge the poverty and suffering that exist alongside the celebration, particularly in the Cratchit family's humble but loving home. This dark chamber and Who Was That Lying Dead? Accompanies Scrooge's journey with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, the most terrifying of the three spirits. Silvestri's music for these sequences is appropriately dark and ominous, employing low brass, dissonant strings, and eerie sound design elements to create an atmosphere of dread and inevitability. The music mirrors Scrooge's growing horror as he witnesses the consequences of his continued selfishness, his lonely death, the callous treatment of his body, and the mourning of Tiny Tim. However, the score's most emotionally powerful moment comes with None of Us Will Ever Forget, which accompanies the scene where the Cratchit family mourns the death of Tiny Tim. Here, Silvestri strips away the orchestral complexity and allows the human voice and simple melodic lines to convey the profound sadness of the moment. The music is tender and heartbreaking, helping to create one of the film's most affecting sequences. The transformation of Scrooge and his joyful awakening on Christmas morning required music of unrestrained celebration and relief. "I'm still here and right on," my good man burst with energy and joy as Scrooge realizes he has been given a second chance. Silvestri incorporates Christmas Carol themes more prominently here, with "God Rest You Merry Gentlemen" serving as a particular motif for Scrooge's redemption. The orchestration is bright and exuberant, with triumphant brass, energetic strings, and joyful percussion reflecting Scrooge's newfound lease on life. The soundtrack album concluded with "God Bless Us Everyone," the film's theme song. This original composition was written by Glenn Ballard and Alan Silvestri and performed by Italian classical crossover tenor Andrea Bocelli. The choice of Bocelli, with his powerful and emotionally resonant voice, added an element of gravitas and international appeal to the project. The song serves as both a conclusion to the film and a standalone piece that encapsulates the story's themes of redemption, family, and the spirit of Christmas. Bocelli's performance is heartfelt and moving, providing a perfect emotional capstone to the musical journey. For the Japanese release of the film, a different theme song was commissioned. "Present by Juju" served as the Japanese version's theme, reflecting the common practice of creating market-specific promotional songs for international releases. This allowed the film to connect more directly with Japanese audiences while respecting cultural preferences in film music. The soundtrack album was released on November 3, 2009, by Walt Disney Records, just 3 days before the film's theatrical release. Initially, the score was available only as a digital download through online retailers such as iTunes and Amazon, a distribution strategy that was becoming increasingly common for film soundtracks. This approach reflected both changing consumer habits and Disney's cost-cutting measures, as physical CD production and distribution represented a significant expense. However, the score's quality and demand from collectors eventually led to a physical release. In later years, Entrada Records partnered with Disney to release a limited edition CD of the soundtrack, allowing serious soundtrack collectors to own the music in a high-quality physical format. This release featured the same program as the original digital version but included enhanced packaging and liner notes, adding value for collectors. The physical release was celebrated by soundtrack enthusiasts who preferred the superior audio quality and tangible nature of CDs. Critical reception of Silvestri's score was overwhelmingly positive, with many reviewers identifying the music as one of the film's greatest strengths. Critics praised the composer's ability to balance traditional Christmas themes with darker, more dramatic material, creating a musical landscape that supported the film's ambitious tone. Several reviewers noted that Silvestri's score represented some of his finest work since The Polar Express and Van Helsing, demonstrating his continued mastery of the art of film composition. Music critics specifically highlighted several aspects of the score. The integration of traditional Christmas carols was praised for being clever and musically sophisticated rather than merely referential. Silvestri's orchestration received particular acclaim, with critics noting the lush, detailed nature of the musical arrangements and the effective use of the full orchestra to create emotional impact. The thematic development throughout the scaria, the way certain musical ideas evolved and transformed as Scrooge's character changed, was identified as particularly effective storytelling through music. Some listeners and critics drew comparisons between Silvestri's A Christmas Carol score and other Christmas film music, particularly John Williams's work on Home Alone and Silvestri's own previous score for The Polar Express. These comparisons were generally favorable, with many noting that Silvestri had carved out a distinctive musical identity for this adaptation while still working within the broader tradition of Christmas film scores. The music's ability to be both haunting and heartwarming, dark and joyful, was seen as perfectly matching the film's tonal ambitions. The score's standalone appeal, its ability to be enjoyed apart from the film, was another point of praise. Film score enthusiasts noted that the album functioned as a compelling musical journey on its own terms, with strong thematic material and effective dramatic arc. This quality ensured that the soundtrack would have a life beyond the film itself, becoming part of some listeners' annual Christmas music rotation. Theatrical. The theatrical release strategy for A Christmas Carol represented one of Disney's most ambitious and expensive marketing campaigns of 2009. The studio recognized that the film's production costs necessitated not just a successful release but a blockbuster performance to recoup its investment. The campaign began months before the film's November opening, building anticipation through a carefully orchestrated series of events and promotional activities. The film's world premiere took place in London on November 3, 2009, a strategically significant choice given the story's British origins and setting. The premiere was scheduled to coincide with the switching on of the annual Oxford Street and Regent Street Christmas lights, one of London's most celebrated holiday traditions. This timing created a perfect synergy between the film's Christmas themes and the city's own holiday preparations, generating substantial media coverage and public interest. The event attracted significant attention from the British press and public, with the presence of Jim Carrey, Robert Zemeckis, and other cast members adding star power to the festivities. The United States theatrical release followed 3 days later on November 6, 2009. Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, the studio's distribution arm, gave the film a wide release across 3,683 theaters, demonstrating confidence in the film's commercial potential. Significantly, the release strategy emphasized the film's stereoscopic 3D presentation as a major selling point. Disney ensured that the film would be shown in as many 3D-equipped theaters as possible, recognizing that premium-priced 3D tickets would be essential to achieving profitability given the film's substantial budget. The promotional campaign for A Christmas Carol was multifaceted and extensive, utilizing traditional advertising methods alongside innovative experiential marketing. Television commercials aired frequently during primetime programming in the weeks leading up to the release, with different spots targeting family audiences, animation enthusiasts, and literary audiences. These commercials emphasized different aspects of the film depending on their intended audience. Some focused on the magical and fantastical elements to appeal to children, while others highlighted the story's dramatic weight and Jim Carrey's performance to attract adult viewers. Print advertising appeared in major newspapers and magazines, with full-page advertisements showcasing the film's stunning visuals and star power. Outdoor advertising was prominent in major cities, with billboards, bus shelters, and subway posters featuring images from the film. The marketing materials emphasized both the cutting-edge technology behind the film and its faithfulness to Dickens's classic tale, attempting to position the movie as both a technological achievement and a worthy literary adaptation. One of the most memorable and effective marketing initiatives was the Christmas Carol Express, a promotional train tour organized in partnership with Amtrak. The special train traveled across the United States from late October through mid-November 2009, making stops in major cities including New York, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Denver, and Los Angeles. At each stop, the train opened to the public, offering visitors an immersive experience that recreated Victorian London settings from the film. Attendees could explore elaborately decorated train cars featuring props, costumes, and interactive displays related to the movie. The train tour generated substantial media coverage in each city it visited, with local news stations featuring segments about the attraction and families lining up to explore the exhibit. This grassroots marketing approach created personal connections between potential audiences and the film, building anticipation in a way that traditional advertising could not achieve. The tour also benefited from social media amplification, as visitors shared photos and experiences online, extending the campaign's reach organically. Disney also partnered with numerous retail chains for cross-promotional opportunities. Major retailers including Walmart, Target, and Toys R Us featured special displays promoting the film and selling related merchandise. This merchandise included action figures of the main characters, plush toys, clothing items, books, and other products designed to capitalize on the film's release in the holiday shopping season. The merchandising strategy was particularly aggressive in the toy market, where Disney hoped to replicate the success it had achieved with other animated properties. The film's website served as a central hub for promotional activities, featuring trailers, behind-the-scenes content, games, and downloadable materials. Disney created an extensive online presence across multiple platforms, with dedicated pages on social media sites where fans could engage with content and share their excitement. The studio released multiple trailers and clips from the film in the months before release, carefully selecting sequences that showcased both the visual spectacle and emotional depth of the adaptation. Special advance screenings were organized for various groups, including critics, industry professionals, educators, and Dickens societies. These screenings served multiple purposes: generating early reviews and word of mouth, building support within the educational community who might encourage students to see the film, and ensuring that literary purists and Dickens enthusiasts were aware of the film's faithfulness to the source material. Some screenings were followed by Q&A sessions with the filmmakers, providing additional promotional opportunities and demonstrating Disney's confidence in the production. Educational outreach represented another component of the marketing strategy. Disney developed curriculum materials related to the film and Dickens's original work, making these resources available to teachers who might incorporate the story into their holiday lesson plans. The studio recognized that positioning the film as an educational experience could drive school group bookings and encourage parents to take their children to see a worthwhile movie rather than mere entertainment. Jim Carrey's promotional tour was extensive, with the actor appearing on numerous television programs, radio shows, and in print interviews. His appearances on programs like The Tonight Show, Late Night with David Letterman, and morning news programs helped build awareness across different demographic groups. Carrey discussed his multiple roles in the film, the motion capture process, and his respect for Dickens's original work, helping to position the film as a serious artistic endeavor rather than just another animated movie. His natural charisma and humor made him an ideal ambassador for the film, and he embraced the promotional responsibilities enthusiastically. The studio also emphasized the film's technological achievements in marketing to certain audiences. Technology and film industry publications received materials highlighting the advances in motion capture technology, the scale of the digital production, and the innovations in stereoscopic 3D presentation. This approach helped generate coverage in outlets that might not typically review animated or family films, expanding the conversation around the movie and reinforcing its status as a significant cinematic achievement. Critical screenings were scheduled strategically to generate reviews that would appear shortly before the film's release. Disney hoped that positive reviews would drive opening weekend attendance and create momentum for a strong theatrical run through the holiday season. The studio was particularly interested in securing positive notices from respected critics and publications that could lend prestige to the project and counter any potential criticism of the film's darker tone or technological approach. The decision to release the film in early November, before the traditional Thanksgiving holiday, was strategic. Disney wanted to establish the film in theaters before the typical holiday rush of releases, giving it time to build word of mouth and establish itself as a holiday staple. The early November release also meant the film would be available throughout the crucial holiday season, potentially benefiting from multiple holiday periods including Thanksgiving, the period between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the Christmas holiday itself. However, this release strategy also meant competing with other major releases during a crowded season. The studio had to position A Christmas Carol not just against other family films but against a wide range of movies targeting different audiences during the profitable holiday period. Disney's marketing emphasized the film's unique quality as its advanced technology, faithful adaptation, and combination of holiday cheer with genuine dramatic storytelling to differentiate it from competitors. The 3D presentation became a central element of the theatrical experience and marketing. At the time, stereoscopic 3D was still relatively novel for mainstream audiences, with only a handful of films having been released in the format. Disney positioned A Christmas Carol as a must-see theatrical experience, arguing that the 3D presentation was integral to Zemeckis' artistic vision and could not be replicated at home. This emphasis on the theatrical experience was designed to drive ticket sales despite the availability of countless adaptations of the story in other formats. Premium pricing for 3D presentations meant higher ticket costs, which potentially limited accessibility for some families but also increased per-ticket revenue. Disney calculated that even if the 3D upcharge discouraged some viewers, the increased revenue from those who did attend would compensate. The studio also offered the film in standard 2D presentations in theaters without 3D capability, ensuring the widest possible reach. International release dates varied by market, with most territories receiving the film in November or early December 2009 to capitalize on the Christmas season. Disney's international marketing adapted to local markets, with country-specific promotional campaigns that acknowledged regional Christmas traditions and viewing preferences while maintaining the core messaging about the film's quality and technological achievement. In some markets, particularly in Europe, the film's connection to Dickens and British literary tradition was emphasized more heavily than in the United States. The theatrical run extension through the holiday season was planned from the beginning, with Disney securing theater commitments that would keep the film in multiplexes well into December and potentially into early January if performance warranted. This long-planned theatrical window reflected both confidence in the film's appeal and recognition that holiday films often have longer legs than typical releases, benefiting from repeated family viewings and the increased leisure time available during school vacations. Home media. The home media release strategy for A Christmas Carol was comprehensive, reflecting Disney's understanding that physical media sales would be crucial to the film's overall profitability. Following its theatrical run, the film was released on DVD, Blu-ray, and Blu-ray 3D formats, with each version offering different features and targeting different consumer segments. The standard DVD release, aimed at the mass market, was priced accessibly to encourage widespread adoption. This version included the film in standard definition along with select bonus features. The DVD was packaged in various retail configurations, including single-disc editions and multi-disc packages that included digital copy codes allowing purchasers to watch the film on computers and mobile devices. The Blu-ray release represented a significant upgrade in quality, offering the film in high definition with enhanced audio. This version was targeted at home theater enthusiasts and consumers with high-definition playback equipment. The Blu-ray included more extensive bonus features than the DVD, with behind-the-scenes documentaries, deleted scenes, and technical featurettes exploring the motion capture process and digital animation techniques. Disney recognized that Blu-ray purchasers were typically more invested in the filmmaking process and valued supplementary content. The Blu-ray 3D release was particularly significant, as it allowed consumers to experience the film's stereoscopic presentation at home for the first time. This format required specialized 3D television sets and glasses, limiting its potential audience to early adopters of 3D home technology. However, for those with the necessary equipment, the Blu-ray 3D offered a theatrical quality experience in the home environment. Disney included this format as part of multi-disc packages that also contained standard Blu-ray and DVD versions, maximizing value and future-proofing purchases as 3D television adoption increased. The bonus features across all formats provided extensive insight into the film's production. Behind the Carol, the full motion capture experience was a comprehensive documentary that followed the production from conception through completion. This feature included interviews with Zemeckis, the cast, and various technical specialists, offering viewers a detailed understanding of how performance capture works and the challenges involved in creating the film. The documentary demystified the technology while also honoring the artistry and craftsmanship required to bring the story to life. On set with Sammy featured a young host exploring the motion capture stage and interviewing cast members in their motion capture suits. This feature was designed to appeal to younger viewers, making the technical aspects of the production accessible and entertaining for children. The lighter tone and child-friendly presentation made complex technology understandable for the film's younger audience. Deleted scenes offered glimpses of sequences that were cut from the final film during the editing process. Some of these scenes were presented in various stages of completion, from raw motion capture footage to partially animated sequences, allowing viewers to see different stages of the post-production process. Commentary from Zemeckis accompanied these scenes, explaining why they were removed and how such decisions are made in the editing room. Charles Dickens and the Lasting Impact of A Christmas Carol was a featurette exploring the novella's literary significance and cultural impact. Literary scholars and Dickens experts discuss the work's creation, its initial reception, and its enduring popularity. This feature, positioned the film within the broader context of Dickens' scholarship and helped justify the production's claims of faithfulness to the source material. Several featurettes explored specific technical aspects of the production. Behind-the-scenes segments examined the motion capture process, the creation of digital environments, the design of the Christmas spirits, and the stereoscopic 3D technique. These features satisfied tech-savvy viewers interested in the mechanics of digital filmmaking while also serving an educational purpose for students and aspiring filmmakers. Capturing a Christmas Carol focused specifically on how the actors' performances were recorded and transformed into the digital characters seen in the film. This featurette included side-by-side comparisons of Jim Carrey in his motion capture suit alongside the finished animation, clearly demonstrating how the actor's performance was preserved and enhanced through the animation process. The home releases also included interactive features such as photo galleries, production artwork, and in some cases, interactive games and activities designed for younger viewers. These supplementary materials added value to the packages and encouraged viewers to spend more time engaged with the property beyond simply watching the film. Disney's marketing for the home media release emphasized the film's suitability as a holiday tradition. Advertisements position A Christmas Carol as an essential addition to family holiday viewing, comparable to classics like It's a Wonderful Life and Miracle on 34th Street. The marketing suggested that purchasing the film would allow families to make it part of their annual Christmas celebrations, watching it repeatedly across years. The release timing was strategic, with the home media versions becoming available in early November 2010, nearly a year after the theatrical release but time to capitalize on the holiday shopping season. This allowed the film to benefit from holiday gift giving while also being available for families' holiday viewing. Retailers featured the film prominently in their Christmas sections, often bundling it with other holiday films or offering special pricing to encourage purchases. International home media releases followed similar patterns, with regional variations in packaging, bonus features, and pricing to accommodate different markets. Some international releases included dubbed audio tracks and subtitles in multiple languages, reflecting Disney's global distribution reach. The physical media was supplemented by digital availability through platforms like iTunes, Amazon Video, and eventually Disney's own streaming services. Over time, as physical media sales decline industry-wide, A Christmas Carol transitioned to primarily digital distribution. The film became available on various streaming platforms through rental or purchase, and eventually became part of the Disney Plus streaming service catalog when that platform launched in November 2019. The streaming availability introduced the film to new audiences who might not have seen it during its theatrical or physical media releases. Special edition releases emerged in subsequent years, including anniversary editions with updated packaging and occasional new bonus features. These releases targeted collectors and serious fans willing to purchase the film multiple times for enhanced presentations or additional content. However, the core home media strategy remained focused on positioning the film as a holiday perennial that families would return to annually. Reception box office. The box office performance of A Christmas Carol represented both significant achievement and notable disappointment for Disney, demonstrating the complex economics of big-budget animated productions and the challenges of recouping substantial investments even with respectable ticket sales. The film's financial journey began promisingly but ultimately fell short of the studio's ambitious expectations. The North American opening weekend saw A Christmas Carol debut in first place at the box office, earning approximately $30 million across the November 6th to 8th weekend. This represented a solid if not spectacular opening for a major studio release during the holiday season. The film's performance was driven primarily by 3D screenings, which accounted for a disproportionate share of the weekend revenue due to premium ticket pricing. The strong opening in 3D theaters validated Disney's decision to emphasize the stereoscopic presentation as a major selling point. However, even this first-place debut contained warning signs for Disney executives. Industry analysts had projected a stronger opening based on the film's budget, star power, and holiday timing. The $30 million opening, while respectable, suggested that general audiences might not be embracing the film with the enthusiasm Disney had hoped for. Tracking data indicated that awareness of the film was high, but intent to purchase tickets was lower than expected, suggesting potential resistance to either the film's darker tone, its technological approach, or competition from other entertainment options. The film's second weekend saw a significant drop in attendance, falling approximately 50% from its opening weekend total. This steep decline is typical for many Hollywood releases but was particularly concerning given the film's high production costs. The drop suggested that word of mouth was not strong enough to drive repeat viewings or attract audiences who had been uncertain about seeing the film opening weekend. By contrast, holiday films that become genuine cultural phenomena typically show stronger legs, maintaining audience interest across multiple weeks. Throughout November and into early December, A Christmas Carol continued to earn revenue but at levels that made profitability increasingly uncertain. The film faced competition from other holiday releases, including 2012, The Blind Side, and New Moon, all of which appealed to different audience segments and competed for discretionary entertainment spending. Additionally, the general economic climate in late 2009, with many families still recovering from the 2008 financial crisis, may have dampened enthusiasm for premium-priced 3D theatrical experiences. The film's domestic theatrical run concluded with a total gross of approximately $137.9 million, a respectable sum but well below what was necessary to recoup the film's production and marketing costs through domestic ticket sales alone. The rule of thumb in Hollywood is that a film needs to gross approximately 2.5 to 3 times its production budget to achieve profitability when accounting for marketing costs and the share of ticket revenue that goes to theaters rather than studios. With a production budget between $175 and $200 million, A Christmas Carol needed to gross $450 million to $600 million worldwide to break even, and significantly more to generate substantial profit. International box office became crucial to the film's financial equation. The film was released in territories around the world throughout November and December 2009, timed to coincide with holiday seasons in different markets. The United Kingdom, given the story's British origins and the London premiere, was a particular area of focus. The film performed reasonably well in the UK but did not achieve the blockbuster status that Disney had hoped for in this strategically important market. Other European markets provided solid if unspectacular returns, with the film benefiting from strong awareness of Dickens's story and the cultural significance of A Christmas Carol in European Christmas traditions. However, the film faced the same challenges internationally that it had encountered domestically: a competition from other releases, the economic climate, and apparent resistance from some audience segments to the film's darker interpretation of a familiar story. Japan represented an important market where the film achieved moderate success, benefiting from the special Japanese theme song and targeted marketing to Japanese audiences. However, even this customization did not elevate the film to blockbuster status in the territory. Other Asian markets provided varying levels of return, with the film generally performing better in territories with strong Christmas traditions and familiarity with Western literature. The international box office ultimately added approximately $187.4 million to the film's total, bringing the worldwide gross to approximately $325.3 million. This represented a significant sum and confirmed that the film had found an audience globally. However, it still fell short of the revenue needed to guarantee profitability when accounting for the production budget, extensive marketing campaign, and distribution costs across global markets. The 3D premium pricing played a crucial role in the film's economics. Although 3D tickets typically cost several dollars more than standard tickets, meaning fewer ticket sales were needed to reach any given revenue target, the higher prices may have also deterred some price-sensitive families from attending. Disney's gamble on 3D as a driver of revenue proved partially successful. The 3D screenings generated disproportionate revenue per screen, but the overall attendance was not sufficient to compensate for the film's enormous costs. Theater owners' reactions to the film were mixed. While the opening weekend performance was strong enough to justify the wide release, the subsequent drop-off meant that some theaters began reallocating screens to competing films more quickly than Disney would have preferred. The film's lengthy runtime and need for 3D-equipped screens also limited its flexibility in scheduling, as theaters could show fewer screenings per day than they could with shorter films or those not requiring special equipment. The financial underperformance of A Christmas Carol had significant consequences beyond this single film. Image Movers Digital, the production facility created specifically to produce performance capture films for Disney, became a casualty of the disappointment. Disney had originally planned for Image Movers Digital to produce multiple films, creating a pipeline of motion capture productions. However, the financial results from A Christmas Carol, combined with similar disappointments from earlier performance capture films, led Disney to reconsider this strategy. In March 2010, just months after A Christmas Carol concluded its theatrical run, Disney announced the closure of Image Movers Digital. The studio's next planned project, a motion capture adaptation of Yellow Submarine featuring the Beatles' music, was cancelled. Approximately 450 employees lost their jobs as the facility shut down. This decision represented a significant retreat from the performance capture technology that Zemeckis and Disney had invested so heavily in, and it essentially ended the experiment with this form of digital theater at the studio level. The home media market provided some additional revenue that improved the film's overall financial picture. DVD and Blu-ray sales during the 2010 holiday season generated substantial income, with the film performing particularly well in the weeks leading up to Christmas as families sought holiday entertainment options. However, even these sales could not transform the film into the major success Disney had envisioned. From a purely economic standpoint, A Christmas Carol must be considered a box office disappointment relative to its budget and expectations. The film earned back its production costs but likely operated at a loss or marginal profit when marketing and distribution expenses are factored in. For a major studio production with significant investment and ambition, this outcome represented a setback that influenced Disney's future production decisions regarding animation technology and holiday releases. However, it is worth noting that box office performance does not necessarily reflect artistic merit or long-term cultural impact. Films that underperform theatrically sometimes find second lives through home media, television broadcasts, and streaming platforms. A Christmas Carol has continued to be discovered by audiences in the years since its theatrical release, particularly during holiday seasons when families seek Christmas-themed entertainment. Its availability on Disney Plus has introduced it to a new generation of viewers who may appreciate its technical achievements and faithful adaptation without the expectations and controversies that surrounded its original release. Critical response. The critical response to Disney's A Christmas Carol revealed a deeply divided reaction among film reviewers, with opinions ranging from enthusiastic praise to substantial criticism. This division reflected broader debates about the role of technology in filmmaking, the challenges of adapting beloved classics, and the appropriate tone for family-oriented holiday entertainment. At the major review aggregation sites, the film received mixed to positive scores that quantified the division among critics. Rotten Tomatoes, which compiles reviews from approved critics and calculates a percentage based on positive versus negative reviews, reported that the film received a score in the mid-50s percentage range based on several hundred reviews. This rotten rating indicated that more critics found the film lacking than found it successful, though a substantial minority did appreciate the production. The site's consensus description noted the film's visual splendor while questioning whether the technical achievements compensated for perceived emotional coldness. Metacritic, which assigns rated scores to reviews from major publications and calculates an average, gave the film a score in the mid-50s out of 100. Indicating mixed or average reviews. This score placed the film in a middle range and not dismissed as a failure but not celebrated as a success. The Metacritic score reflected how the film divided critics, with some major publications offering very positive reviews while others were quite negative. Supporters of the film praised several aspects of the production. Many critics identified Robert Zemeckis' faithfulness to Dickens's original text as a significant strength, arguing that this version came closer to capturing the novella's spirit than most previous adaptations. Reviewers appreciated that Zemeckis did not shy away from the story's darker elements, presenting Marley's ghost as genuinely frightening, depicting the poverty of Victorian London without sanitization, and allowing the ghost of Christmas yet to come to terrify audiences as Dickens intended. These critics argued that A Christmas Carol is fundamentally a ghost story with redemptive themes rather than a simple holiday fable, and they praised Zemeckis for honoring this aspect of the source material. The visual achievements of the film received widespread acknowledgement even from critics who disliked other aspects. Reviewers described the Victorian London created for the film as remarkably detailed and atmospheric, praising the attention to period accuracy in architecture, costumes, and environmental details. The opening sequence, with its lengthy virtual camera movement through London's streets, was frequently singled out as spectacular. Critics noted that the film demonstrated the potential of digital animation to create worlds that would be impossible or prohibitively expensive to construct as physical sets. Jim Carrey's performance garnered mixed but often positive responses. Critics who appreciated his work noted his ability to differentiate between his multiple characters through voice and physical performance, even though the digital animation obscured his actual appearance. Reviewers praised his interpretation of Scrooge as appropriately bitter and selfish in the early scenes while finding redemption and joy by the conclusion. Carrey's work as the three Christmas spirits was seen as inventive, with each spirit having distinct personality despite all emerging from the same performer. Alan Silvestri's musical score received overwhelmingly positive reviews, with critics identifying the music as one of the film's unambiguous strengths. Reviewers praised the score's ability to balance traditional Christmas music with darker, more dramatic themes. The integration of familiar carols into original compositions was highlighted as clever and effective. Several critics noted that the music enhanced scenes that might otherwise have felt emotionally distant, helping to bridge the gap between the digital animation and the audience's emotions. However, the film's detractors raised substantial concerns about various aspects of the production. The most common criticism focused on the motion capture animation itself and what many critics perceived as an emotional coldness resulting from the technology. These reviewers argued that the digital characters, despite their technical sophistication, fail to convey the warmth and humanity necessary for the story to achieve its full emotional impact. The uncanny valley phenomenon, where digital characters appear almost but not quite human, creating an unsettling effect, was frequently cited as undermining the film's emotional resonance. Critics concerned about the uncanny valley effect noted that the characters' eyes, in particular, seemed lifeless despite the filmmakers' efforts to animate them convincingly. These reviewers argued that subtle aspects of human expression that actors convey naturally were lost in the translation to digital characters, leaving performances that felt hollow regardless of the actor's actual work. This criticism was particularly pointed regarding scenes that should have been emotionally powerful, such as the Cratchit family mourning Tiny Tim or Scrooge's reunion with his nephew Fred on Christmas morning. Critics felt these moments lacked the emotional punch they needed to fully succeed. The film's darker tone, while praised by some, was criticized by others as inappropriate for family audiences and the holiday season. These reviewers argued that Zemeckis' emphasis on frightening imagery, particularly in the sequences with Jacob Marley's ghost and the ghost of Christmas yet to come, made the film too intense for young children. Critics noted that Disney's marketing had positioned the film as family entertainment, but parents might be unpleasantly surprised by how scary certain sequences were. Some reviewers suggested that the film fell between two stools, being too frightening for young children but not sophisticated enough to fully satisfy adult audiences. The pacing of the film received criticism from some quarters, with reviewers arguing that certain sequences, a particularly action-oriented chase scene, felt padded and detracted from the story's emotional core. Critics noted that Zemeckis seemed unable to resist showing off the technological capabilities at his disposal, creating elaborate flying sequences and action set pieces that felt out of place in a Dickens adaptation. The scene where Scrooge shrinks to tiny size and is chased by the ghost of Christmas past was frequently cited as an example of spectacle overwhelming narrative purpose. The faithfulness to Dickens's text, praised by some, was seen as a weakness by other critics. These reviewers argued that simply transcribing Dickens's Victorian prose to the screen resulted in dialogue that felt stilted and unnatural, particularly coming from animated characters. They suggested that a more adaptive approach, updating the language while maintaining the story's spirit, would have served the film better. The extensive use of Dickens's original narration and dialogue was seen by these critics as a crutch that prevented Zemeckis from fully translating the story into cinematic language. Some critics questioned whether motion capture technology was the appropriate choice for this story. These reviewers argued that the technology's limitations, particularly regarding facial expression and emotional warmth, made it ill-suited for a story that depends on emotional transformation and human connection. They suggested that either traditional live-action or fully stylized animation might have served the material better. The decision to pursue photorealism while still obviously being animation was seen as creating the worst of both worlds, sacrificing the expressiveness of animation without achieving the emotional authenticity of live action. The review from major publications reflected these divisions. Publications that valued technical innovation and fidelity to source material tended to respond more positively, while those prioritizing emotional engagement and family-friendly entertainment were more critical. The geographic origin of publications also seemed to influence responses, with British critics generally more forgiving of the film's darker tone and Victorian setting, perhaps due to greater cultural familiarity with Dickens and the story's place in British Christmas traditions. Roger Ebert, one of America's most influential film critics, offered a measured response that captured the film's contradictions. He appreciated the visual achievement and Zemeckis' ambition while acknowledging the emotional limitations imposed by the animation style. His review exemplified how critics could recognize the film's technical merits while still finding it ultimately unsatisfying as an emotional experience. Trade publications focused on different aspects of the film. Variety and The Hollywood Reporter analyzed the film partly through the lens of its commercial prospects, discussing how its reception might impact box office performance and Disney's future animation strategy. These publications noted the film's strengths but expressed concern that audience reactions might mirror critical divisions, potentially limiting commercial success. Audience responses, as measured by CinemaScore, which surveys moviegoers immediately after screenings, showed a disconnect between critical and public opinion. The film received an A grade from audiences, indicating general satisfaction among those who actually saw the film. This suggests that while critics had reservations, audiences who chose to attend were generally pleased with the experience. The disparity between critical and audience scores became a talking point in discussions of the film, with supporters arguing that critics had been unduly harsh and detractors suggesting that the relatively positive audience score reflected lowered expectations or the selection bias of who chose to see the film. The film's reputation has evolved somewhat in the years following its release. Some critics and audiences who were initially dismissive have reconsidered their positions, particularly as subsequent performance capture films provided points of comparison. The film's technological achievements are now viewed with more historical perspective, recognized as representing a particular moment in the evolution of digital filmmaking rather than a failed endpoint. The decision to remain faithful to Dickens has aged well, with some viewers appreciating that at least one major adaptation did not feel the need to modernize or significantly alter the original story. Film scholars and analysts have written about A Christmas Carol in the context of adaptation theory, discussing how Zemeckis' approach to translating literature to screen compares with other adaptation strategies. The film has been examined in academic contexts as a case study in the challenges of adapting classic literature, the role of technology in contemporary filmmaking, and the economics of big-budget animation. These scholarly considerations often take a more nuanced view than immediate critical responses, considering the film's place in broader cinematic and cultural contexts. The critical response to A Christmas Carol ultimately reveals the challenges facing filmmakers who attempt to innovate with beloved material. Zemeckis' commitment to technological advancement and literary faithfulness resulted in a film that inspired strong reactions to both positive and negative rather than indifference. Whether viewed as a flawed but ambitious attempt to reimagine a classic or as a cautionary tale about the limits of technology in storytelling, the film generated significant critical discussion and continues to provoke debate among film enthusiasts. The divided critical response ensured that A Christmas Carol would be remembered not as a forgettable failure but as a significant, controversial entry in the long history of adapting Dickens's timeless story for new audiences and new technologies.